Morning.
Hi, everyone. This is Lin Bouthillier from linbouthillier.com. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach and an abuse and trauma survivor myself. And this is my ongoing series where I share information with you from dual perspectives. One as the trauma and abuse survivor, and the other is as a certified trauma recovery coach, which is a mental health professional who is an expert in trauma. Certified trauma recovery coaches do not have credentials to treat, diagnose, counsel, or to do therapy of any kind unless they have dual certification or licensure and have already received or since receiving their CTRC credentials have gone on to further credential themselves in the area of some mental health discipline, which does have diagnosing credentials. So they can be dual credentialed, but I happen to not be. I'm in school right now to become a rapid transformational therapist. And I will finish that with, hopefully, I will finish my program in March of 2025. And then I will have brought into my experience more ability to help my clients with a larger offering of what I can do with and for them. And so one of the things about people who are in mental health care, we have a very strong opinion, many of us, that we don't just learn something and then stay there. We always want to be the highest, best iteration of what we are, and always be on the leading edge of the newest information, the newest science, the newest things that we can offer our client. Because what do we want? We want for our client what we want for ourselves, which is to have the newest, best information so that I can be the healthiest person that I could possibly be. And so, so that's where I'm at this point. And I love it that I'm able to do what I do as a CTRC and still be in school to make a balance of my time so that I can do that. And it feels really, really good to be in school again. And I'm enjoying it. So today's discussion, this is special episode number 150 of my ongoing series entitled Monogamous at 13. A huge part of my story has been coercive control. Excuse me, please. Coercive control is something that millions of people deal with. It might even be more than millions, but I can't say for certain. But the reason I want to share this with you today is because we can't get enough information about coercive control out into the world to help people understand what it is and help them understand that they do not have to live that way and they do not have to tolerate it. And that the way we change it is through personal empowerment, information, healthy information, and then personal empowerment with the people who are hearing it. So if because we are speaking about trauma and abuse, as always, it is highly important that I had to move a chair in case little brother comes over to sit next to me, or little Hazel. It is highly important that we take care of our system's needs whenever we are doing our trauma recovery work. If we're learning about trauma, if we are just listening to someone's story and it is a story of traumatic experience, if it's about abuse, if it's about anything that was a devastation or harm to that person, we truly need to take care of our system's needs so that we feel safe while we're doing it. Anytime we can mitigate having a 4F autonomic nervous system response of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, or any combination of them, or to mitigate having an experience of dissociation or emotional flashback, all of those things do not feel good to us. Having them because we're listening to something, it really doesn't serve us. So we can get around that in a really cool way by just simply using some grounding techniques, some mindfulness practices, And I have a little grounding stone in my hand. Yes, I do miss my holy stone that I lost last week. I brought it with me to the emergency room when I had a really badly infected finger and a chest wall injury. And I brought it with me to help me ground in case I had to have a small procedure done on my finger. And then I left it there on the table because the table was dark brown. My stone was dark brown, and it didn't jump right out at me visually. And I walked out without it. And I didn't realize it till I got home, long after that room was cleaned. I used to do that for a living, cleaning those rooms at the emergency room. And no, there was no chance I could get it back. So now I have a replacement, and it's very nice, but it's not my holy stone. So if you have taken the time to bring yourself into a state of anchored and groundedness using mindfulness practices, then it's a good idea to go forward with this video. And if not, if you don't know how, I made special episode number 57. It's in the list for my videos. If you watch that, it will help you understand. It is entitled How to Prevent and Handle Triggers. And it takes about an hour to watch it, but you can do it in small parts and then come back to this video when you're ready. So with that, I will begin. Today, I am speaking, as I said, about coercive control. And coercive control, I'm going to limit it today just to intimate partner coercive control, although it can be done by anyone. It can be done. In fact, I pulled something up on my phone because I've been aware for a while that in the UK, coercive control is a criminal offense. In the United States, it's not, but in the UK, it is. And here's the definition. Coercive control is when someone in a personal relationship repeatedly behaves in a way that makes the victim feel controlled, isolated, dependent, or scared. Examples are isolating the victim from family, friends, and coworkers, controlling what the victim eats and wears, monitoring the victim's phone calls and text messages, and repeatedly putting the victim down. Penalties. The maximum penalty for a conviction is 5 years imprisonment or a fine. Legislation. The offense is created by Section 76 of the Serious Crime Act 2015. It applies to partners, ex-partners, or family members, regardless of whether they live together. Record. A conviction for coercive control will go on a criminal record and will be disclosed to employers and flag up on a DBS checks. The government has made the changes to the offense to improve the legal framework for tackling coercive control. These changes include removing the cohabitation requirement, which some victims found prevented them from seeking justice. Well, if you're being coercively controlled by your boss at work, and you don't live with them, you might have, let's say, for instance, you work, I don't know, in a hotel, and you start a romantic relationship with the person who employs you. You don't live with them. In this case, we'll just say you didn't live with them, but you work for them. And they're coercively controlling you two ways, one as your intimate partner and one as your employer. And things like this happen. And if you didn't live with them, you might go all through collecting all kinds of evidence and then get to the point of your case where they say, well, the language here says in this statute that you can only do this if you cohabitate. So case is blown out of the water. I'm so glad they changed that for people. Because if you were in a situation where you are absolutely, not just in one way, but in two ways, being coercively controlled by this person, doesn't have to be now your roommate or your spouse, your intimate partner, but you share the same address. Doesn't have to be anymore. And I'm really glad. I'm really, really glad that went in favor of the abused people who are trying to get a situation that is untenable to be fixed, and to hold the people responsible for that crime so that it cannot happen anymore. So, so coercive control It says here, England and Wales became the first nations in the world to criminalize such controlling behavior with relationships, making coercive control illegal. So I'm glad that they are at the beginning of showing the world. Okay, England and Wales were the first to change that, meaning somebody had to go first, and other countries will follow. As a certified trauma recovery coach, I know that right now the Senate for Massachusetts has certified trauma recovery coaching in let's just say it's on the docket, because they're going to be the first state who gives insurance assignment approval for working as a CTRC. Right now, there's no place in the United States where you can accept a person's medical insurance for counseling, or not counseling, but coaching sessions with you. Okay, there's no place where you can accept insurance. And they put it into the Senate in Massachusetts that they're lobbying to get that done. They want that to be allowed in Massachusetts, that you can go to any mental health practitioner, including a certified trauma recovery coach, and then that person can accept your insurance, and then get reimbursement from your insurance. And so so what happens is, just like with England and Wales, with coercive control, they're the first. Massachusetts will be the first here for CTRCs being able to accept a client's insurance. And then the next states that will follow will be California and New York State. We are almost certain that those two will be next. And then after it's on the West Coast and on the East Coast, the states in between are going to start to, the more progressive states will begin to adopt the same legislation to make it to be legal for us to do that. And as it should be, because it offers the client more choice of what they can do with their dollars for, their insurance dollars, for what kind of care they choose to have. Shouldn't be forced to only go to certain types of mental health practitioner, but exclude others. But it will probably increase the requirements for how much supervision a person will need to attend. It's entirely possible. It's already high right now, but it might increase it, and that's okay. That's okay. So I would like to speak a little bit now that we understand what coercive control is, and that the world is changing to accept the idea more that it is a crime against humanity. And just because it isn't considered a crime here in the United States doesn't mean that it isn't. I personally believe that very strongly that it is a crime against humanity. And so I will share with you a little bit of my experiences of coercive control to help you understand. Okay. I've experienced it with my intimate partner for a very, very long time. And I did make in my chronological early episodes, when I got to the point where of my story where I was dating, I began to mention that my partner, who was later my fiance and then later my husband, but this is when I was in 9th grade. It was my birthday, and one of my best friends was his best friend. And in this, I'll just call my boyfriend, I'll just call him, I change his name around all the time, but today I'll call him Charles. Okay. Well, Charles had a very close friend named Brian. And I change everybody's name. Okay. So Charles is my boyfriend, and it's my birthday, and I'm turning 14 years old. And I've been in a relationship with this boyfriend of mine for about 9 months. And so now we're finally at the high school, and it's the end of October, and it's my birthday. They announce the birthdays on the the morning announcements every day. And so we came out of that classroom, and my very first class was down in the science wing. And I'm walking down the hall, and our mutual friend, Brian, coincidentally had been the very first boy to ever kiss me the year, 2 years before. I'm walking down the hall and he picks me up and I was a very tiny girl at that time, picks me up and swings me around and kissed me on the lips and said, "Happy birthday, honey. I hope you have a great day." And he was very sweet, and it was very, very nice of him to do that. And he was just an impetuous person, and very, very, very demonstrative with affection. And my boyfriend was not there to see it. He did not see that. But later on, around lunchtime, I didn't have any classes with my boyfriend, Charles. But what I told him was, we were walking down the hall, and he asked me a question, "How's your birthday going today? Are you having a nice birthday?" And I said, "Yeah." And Brian came down the hall this morning, just before first period, just picked me up, swung me around, kissed me on the lips and said, "Happy birthday, honey," and set me down. And he said, "He did what?" And I told him, again, that's all that happened. And he said, "Oh, is he your boyfriend now? Since when do you kiss other guys?" And I said, "I didn't kiss anybody. He kissed me, and it was a birthday kiss. It wasn't a romantic kiss." And he said, "Yeah." And he just kind of walked away from me like I was nothing. Just turned around and went on his way. And so I felt some discomfort, and I felt a little bit sad. I felt shocked, but it got worse at the end of the day. Just at the very end of the day, everybody's at their lockers, and I had got my stuff and was just about to go out the door with him to go walk to our buses to go home. And Brian was near us, and my boyfriend Charles got behind my back, put his hands on both of my shoulders, and just shoved me towards Brian and said, "You want her? You can have her. She's all yours now." And he walked away. It was my birthday. And I didn't recognize, I knew nothing about coercive control. Nobody used that language then, at least not with little girls that are first year high school. Little girls turning 13, going from 13 to 14 years of age. Nobody spoke about coercive control. But that was my first experience with it that I can remember in that relationship with him. Because yes, he was coercing me to have sex with him. No doubt about it. He was doing that with me. Sexual contact at school that started when I was 13 years old. And 4 months after I'd stopped being 12, as I like to say to people, to clarify how young I was. I'd only stopped being 12 4 months before. That is a very, very young age to be pushed into sexual contact at school. I was not looking for sexual contact. I never initiated sexual contact at that age. I was being coerced into it. But the first time when I learned about coercive control, the first time that it became aware to me that I was coercively controlled was that day on my birthday, when he shoved me towards somebody else and he said, "If you want her, you can have her." I walked away, went home. And it made me feel like I was an object. It made me feel like I was a commodity to be passed around. It made me feel that the day that it was, today I'm celebrating my 14th trip around the sun. And I'm completely not even respectable at all in any way. He couldn't think about me being a tiny bit special that day. We're all a little extra special on our birthday. We're special every single day, every single one of us. But on our birthday, we're just a little bit extra special. And everybody knows that. Any person who's in high school by then, they announce the birthdays every day, because even the teachers' birthdays were announced at our school. But it's because you're just a little bit extra special that day, so that people can celebrate the fact that you were born and you're here and you matter and you're worthy of love and attention and care and all good things. You are deserving of a little special recognition on the day of the anniversary that you arrived on the planet. And so what happened was that shoving me away was the beginning of his sticking his arm into the fishbowl of my life. I should say his dirty arm into the fishbowl of my life and swirling the water the way he wants it to go. Okay, that's my description for coercive control. It's just myself being a teeny tiny little bit poetic about coercive control. But when I say this to you, it's to help you have a visual, because we learn when we have our mind developing pictures. So we can understand a concept a little bit more accurately when we have a picture to associate it with. And that's why I speak in vignettes showing a little teleplay in a hallway, in the science hallway of a rural New York's upstate New York high school, to show you that this 14-year-old boy on his girlfriend's 14th birthday coercively controlled her. Because what was the message? The message wasn't don't have a birthday and don't turn 14 years old. The message wasn't that I don't want you to ever speak to or be spoken to by any boys. Well, that was part of it, but that wasn't the overarching message. But the message was, you are mine. I consider you my property, and no one else is allowed to touch or kiss my property. No one is allowed to put their hands on you and pick you up off the ground and twirl you around and kiss you. That's ridiculous. This is what he was letting people know, and anybody who was standing around watching, he had an audience. He was letting people know, my girlfriend is my property. And anybody who touches my property or messes with my property is going to be publicly humiliated and shamed by me. And so that was establishing a pattern, but I didn't know it yet. And most little 13 or 14-year-old girls would not recognize that pattern. When I was in my 30s, 40s, 50s, I still wasn't fully recognizing the patterns. It took me a very long time. I like to say I was late to the party of waking up. But I say that because if you are in your older years, if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, and you're just now beginning to put the story together, I can't look into your eyes right now because I'm not with you. But if I was with you right now, this is what I would be saying. Please understand that that was not your fault. Coercive control is one of the stickiest, most deceptive, sneaky things that a person can do to another person. We can't see through walls and we can't see around corners. And part of what they do to us with coercive control keeps us in a state of fog, F-O-G. What Dr. Susan Forward, a wonderful author, psychologist, PhD psychologist, specializing in family relationships. When I speak about Dr. Susan Forward, and multiple books of hers are on my shelf, and some are in my room, some are in my tote bag in my car. But when we have this material from a person who is so clear about all of this, that they even trademark an acronym, FOG, to teach all of us, made it super easy. So we have a picture, FOG, fog. And what it stands for is that she created this. This is her intellectual property. This belongs to, it is owned by Dr. Susan Forward, PhD, but she gave it to all of us as a gift. And what she states in her books is fear, obligation, and guilt is how people control you. They make you afraid, make you feel obligated, and they make you feel guilty. And so I was being treated like I was the whore of Babylon that day and for days afterwards. I was treated with just a little bit of sarcasm, not withholding their gaze, withholding their smiling, flat affect, uh, flat prosody of voice. What that means is like normally when we bump into somebody and we look at them and we smile and we're like excited to see them. Hi, how are you today? I'm so happy to see you. But when somebody is punishing you, wanting you to feel guilty for something that they didn't like that you did that wasn't even wrong, what they'll do is they will look away from you, or they'll just like, instead of looking you in the eyes, they'll look you in the chin, or they'll look you right here, look at your chest, or right over your shoulder, right past you. And when they speak to you, it's going to sound like this: hi, how are you? So there's going to be no facial expression except for, this is stonewalling. This is the action of stonewalling someone. I'm not giving you myself. You're not deserving of me. So you get flat affect and flat voice prosody. So flat voice prosody is a very, very clear way of making you feel unsafe. There's a doctor. His name is oh my goodness, I'm blanking on it. His book's right up here on my shelf. I do this all the time. Oh dear. Oh, Dr. Stephen Porges. His book is the polyvagal pocket guide to the polyvagal theory. He's got a whole bunch of books. I only have 2 of his books. But the pocket guide to the polyvagal theory, I recommend it to everybody. It is really easy to read, and it is amazing information with his research. He's clarifying what his research has been, presenting it to the world, and letting us know that one of the signals of safety that we get from our parent when we're newborn, or our primary caregiver when we're newborn, all the way up until the day that we die, we're constantly seeking, our brain, our nervous system is seeking signals of safety from another person. And when they withhold those signals of safety, we don't feel good. And one of the ways that we learned since we were a newborn baby is to feel safety from whoever's holding us, having that lilting in their voice. Oh, look at you. Aren't you just the sweetest thing? Look how beautiful you are. I'm so glad you're here. Speaking to a baby, I love you so much. You are such a beauty. I love you. You are so special. I wanted you so bad. I'm so glad you're here. That is what a baby needs to hear. It's what we need to hear throughout our life, that lilting in a voice that gives us a feeling of safety. And he said, Dr. Stephen Porges teaches that there are even tiny muscles in our ears that are tuned to catch that. And it signals to our brain that we feel safe. But when somebody gives us this, hi, how are you? Fine. If you ask somebody, are you angry at me? And they say, no. But you sound angry at me. I'm not. We don't feel safe when somebody's doing that to us. And someone who coercively controls us instinctively knows that withholding voice prosody from us and giving us the flat voice, the flat and stern voice, puts us on edge like nobody's business. It makes us feel unsafe. It can make us afraid to look at them. It can make us afraid to be near them. It can make us feel like, what are they going to do to me when I'm not, like with my boyfriend, the next day I went back to school and that's how he was speaking to me. But I think it actually happened on a Friday, and then we had the weekend. And then when I went back, I was kind of worried that this is not going to be over yet. And it wasn't. It wasn't. I was getting flat affect for days, just flat face, very, very contrived, very forced actions with me. He probably should have just broken up with me if he couldn't stand me, right? If it bothered him so badly that somebody else put their hands on me and kissed me, and that I didn't think it was horrible because it was my birthday. Well, this was a giant clue for me, but unfortunately, because of my age and because of already being in an abuse situation at home, excuse me, having really bad allergies, what happens is we get used to it. If we don't know that it's really dangerous to be involved with somebody who would coercively control us, we don't know to get away. And so these relationships can go on a very, very long time, because what is that person doing? And here's where the word grooming comes in. Okay. A person who would coercively control you is going to try it out on you to see how you respond. And maybe not on a fully conscious level, but they are having some level of conscious awareness that they're doing it. It would have to. And then it becomes a pattern. So eventually, he was coercing me, controlling me to tolerate certain things that he would do or not do, but still stay in the relationship. That's essentially the control. That is the big prize in this relationship, is not just to control you, to groom you to be able to accept these levels of increasing little tiny increments. The control will increase and increase and increase and increase and increase over time. And for us to do two things: to tolerate it and to stay. That is what the abuser, their ultimate goal with you, if you're their intimate partner, if it's not a parent-child, but the parent might not want their child to ever leave home. They can use that abuse tactic in order to get their kid to stay forever. But in this case, I'm only referring to just intimate partner relationships. When the abuser wants you to stay and to allow it, they want you to accept it. So they have to groom you with little bits of, because I think most people are aware on at least a deeper level that if I started out the relationship with him, immediately telling him, you got to ditch your friends, you're not allowed to see them. You have to write me a loving note every single day. And you can only wear black t-shirts. I only want to see you in black t-shirts. So you can't wear any other colors to school. And I don't like the music that you listen to, so I only want you to listen to this. If you want a relationship with me, you got to do all those things. If I was doing that to that person right at the beginning of the relationship, they would think, go to hell. I never want to see you again. Stay away from me. You're a weirdo. And that is how coercion works, is because you have to find a small increment ways to get somebody to accept that you are in control of what they think, what they wear, what they listen to, who they hang out with, what they will accept and tolerate being done to their physical person or to their emotions, to their psychology, to their relationships. All of these things have to be done in such a small way, so that it's sort of like the old, I hate the expression, I really hate it, but the frog in the pot. If you toss a frog into a pot of boiling water, I mean, obviously it's a horrible thing to do. I hope that no one would ever do it. But the concept of that language is that it won't even get in. It'll just gone, But if you put the frog in the pot and turn on the heat, it'll gradually get cooked, because, well, the whole thing is such a silly expression. I hate it. But that concept is kind of related to the concept of coercive control. It is the frog in the pot slowly being boiled until you just accept that you're in it. You just do. And so when this happens to us, it's really hard to recognize, especially if you're very young when it starts. But the other situation where it can be really, really difficult, and I've spoken about this before, this is where it's tricky, is that a person who wants to coercively control you doesn't necessarily get access to you when you're young. They might never have known you until way past the age where you would have that, I'm young, I'm inexperienced, I've never been in a relationship before, and I'm just starting to get to know what this is all about. No, when we get to be in our older years, the example that I've given, and I'll speak briefly about it here, when my spouse lost his second parent and we were still together and our son was living with us and he had a girlfriend who wanted to live in our house, but she didn't just ask, can I live at your house? She just decided to come and live here one item at a time. She would just bring one thing at a time every time she visited until her things were here. Not big pieces of furniture or anything like that, but the things that she needed to live away from home were here. And when did she start this? The very day of my husband's father's wake. When he died, it was the day of the night of the wake, when it was snowing out, the roads were icy, it was January, and she asked, can I stay at your house? And that was, I never dreamed, I never imagined that this person was going to take such control over multiple people in our family, but she did. And what did they do? Instead of it happening when you're young and vulnerable, an older person might begin, they just wait for that opportunity. I refer to it as like a rat. Wherever they can get their muzzle through in a crack and get their head through, they can get it. The whole rest of their body can condense, and it's very springy, and it can collapse down into flatness and get through a space. And that's how a person who does coercive control looks in my head. They look like a person who is a rat. In any place they can get their muzzle in and get their head through, they'll get in. And what do they want? Ultimately, control. This person wanted control. It was my son's intimate partnership, but she didn't want just control over him. She wanted control over the entire family. And so they will wait for you to have one of those major life event moments where someone's getting married, someone's getting divorced, someone's dying or has died, or someone got born. But a major thing, an emotional thing is happening inside the family. It could be something like a graduation. It could be celebration. It could be graduation. It could be, there's all different ways that this could take place. But a lot of them can happen right around the time where they begin to get that foothold, is right around the time when something big and emotional is going on with a family, an illness, a serious illness. Oh, yes. Having someone on hospice. Oh, yes. An opportunistic, coercive, controlling person can't get enough of stuff like that. So when we have, when we begin to recognize it, like I was out of high school and I was working, not at my first job. I've been out of high school for a couple of years, and I was working at a nursing home, and I'm wearing the engagement ring of my boyfriend who had become my fiance. And I went out with two girls from work, and one of them was single and had a little boy, and the other one was single and still lived at home with her parents, but she was a year older than me. She had gone to my high school and was the same age and grade as my sister, who was, a year and a half older than me. And there was the other young lady, same age, they were both 1 year older than me, or a year and a half older than me. And we just hit it off. We became friends. And then we started to hang out outside of work and doing some fun stuff together. Well, my fiance, after I had an experience that he did not like, I did something he did not like, and it was when I was with those two girls. He found it to be absolutely intolerable, and it happened at it was a saloon. There was a saloon in the city near our home, and I didn't live with my boyfriend, but where the town where we lived, the next city closest to us was where that saloon was, and I had gone there with my two friends from work. And I did do something that was a really huge mistake, and I shouldn't have done it. But what did my fiance do about this? He told me, you can never, never go near either of them anymore. And I said, that's ridiculous. I work with them. And he says, well, if you have to work with them, that's fine, but you are not going to see them outside of work. You are not going to go near either of them. Your friendship with them is over. And I didn't leave. Why? Because of the years of trauma bonding, it seemed virtually impossible for me to even consider leaving him. Now, the other thing that he said was, and you can never go inside that building. And then he wanted to know, where are the other places that you've gone with these two girls? Where have you been with them? And he said, what other bars have you been at with them? And I said the name of one that was in the town that our apartment was in. And he said, you can never go in there again. You are not allowed inside that building. And at the time, I was 20 years old, okay? We weren't married yet. We were going to be living in that village, but we already knew that, but we still each lived at home with our parents. But he was telling me, any place in the town where we're going to live that you've ever been with these two, you're not allowed to go there. So you better tell me all the places you've been, because I'm making right now this boundary for you. I'm coercively controlling you, and I'm telling you where you're allowed to go and where you're not allowed to go, who you're allowed to see and who you're not allowed to see. So a person who wants coercive control over you, if they have been with you for a significant length of time and you are trauma bonded to them, and I've done other episodes about trauma bond and I'll do more, but trauma bonding, if you're not familiar with it, it's very simple. It's the person who harms you is also the person who makes it all better and rescues you. And then after you tolerate the harm that they did to you, then they give you some sort of affection, some sort of gift, some sort of service, some sort of, it could be multiple different things. They put their arms around you, they kiss you, they hold you, they whisper sweet things to you. They make you feel like the most special person in the world right after they have done something horrendous to you. And that horrendous thing could be small, but it could also be something as intense as rape. And I'm sorry to mention that, but that is the truth. If it's your partner and they're doing something absolutely horrendous to you, and they pull you in close afterwards, if you're crying and upset and they say, oh, come here, you need some love. Come on, you know I love you. You know I always take care of you. I wouldn't hurt you for anything in the world after they've just hurt you. So that trauma bonding it comes with grooming to accept that as well. Just like coercive control, they can groom you into being trauma bonded, little tiny bits at a time, getting you to accept it. And these two abuse tactics, coercive control and trauma bonding, they are not ever the abused person's fault. I can say that unequivocally to you right now with so much certainty and so much clarity. Again, if I was in the same space where you are right now, I would be looking at you and telling you there is absolutely zero responsibility for being coercively controlled and being trauma bonded on the person who has been abused. It does not, it is not, it cannot be your fault, because grooming, anytime grooming is used, that means that person has a power differential. There exists a power differential. They're up here, you're here, and they're exerting power and control over you. And they can be so subtle about it that it might not jump out to your nervous system, to your brain, to your consciousness, to your awareness, that something's wrong. It might not happen for quite some time after this conditioning, gradual conditioning that we call grooming, has gone on and taken hold. And that is exactly how it worked with me. I'd been trauma bonded to multiple different people. And part of it is also that a predatory person, and anyone who would ever groom you, is predatory. Healthy people do not groom other people to accept and tolerate abuse. It is absolutely not part of the equation with a health, what Dr. Roberta Shaler always referred to as a healthier human. She would say a healthier human would never do that behavior, but a person who is disordered would. A person who is disordered is simply a person who embodies the qualities and the behaviors of a person who might have the traits of a certain personality disorder or a certain form of mental disorder. So we can't diagnose them, right? If we're not their provider and we're not credentialed and we don't have all of the medical facts in front of us and their complete total family history and psychological history and all that, we can't diagnose them. But we can say that a person who would coercively control you might have some psychopathic or sociopathic tendencies. They might have those types of behavior patterns. They might have antisocial traits. We can say that. It's not a diagnosis. Or we can say they have high narcissistic traits. We can say that. It's not a diagnosis. But we come to the question then, what on earth can we do about it when we begin to recognize that we're coercively controlled? Well, for me, one of the situations I had when I began to recognize coercive control was with a sibling. And it was related to the coercive control that I'd experienced for decades from, the trauma bond, the coercive control, all of it, the entire history of abuse. I finally was ready to disclose it to one of my siblings. And we were in her rental car and we're riding along a highway. And we were heading back to where we came from. We had gone about 40 miles from home on a day trip to visit a different sister. And we were on our way back. And I said, there's this thing I've been wanting to talk to you about for such a long time, and I just never was able to. But I'd like to do it now, if it's okay with you. There's something going on in my life that I would like to share with you. And she said, okay, what is it? And I said, I have been abused by my spouse. And it took me until I was in my 50s to recognize it. I just could not see that I was in a horrific abuse situation for years. And I just went through the whole list. I said, I have been abused emotionally, verbally, psychologically, physically, spiritually, sexually, financially, and just all kinds of abuse have gone on. And I'm at the end of my rope, and I'm thinking that it's time for me to get a divorce. And she took her eyes off the road for a second to glance at me like that, and then she says, she takes this tone. The first thing she said was, I'm sorry to hear that. And then she says, but have you gone to every single kind of counseling that you could ever possibly get? Have you gone to marriage counseling? Have you gone to see a mental health counselor? Have you done every single thing that you could do in the way of counseling? And I said, no. I've had individual counseling, but I've not gone to marriage counseling or couples counseling with this, because it is very ill-advised for a person who's being abused. You don't stay with an abuser. and try to work it out, because in most cases they can't, and they'll just traumatize you in the counseling if you go. And also, there is no couples counseling or relationship counseling when one of the individuals is in full-blown addiction and not maintaining sobriety, because it's just going to waste the counselor's time, and it's going to waste your own time. And my spouse is not in sobriety at this time. And she said, well, you have absolutely no right to get a divorce until you have exhausted every single form of counseling that you could go to. And so, no, I absolutely cannot support you getting divorced because you haven't taken your responsibility seriously. Well, I made the mistake of telling my spouse about that conversation. I told him weeks later that conversation had happened. And what do you think a coercively controlling person would do with that information? He realized in one split second, I have an untapped resource in that out of state area with that member of my spouse's family. And I found out later, he began a secret relationship with her where she was coaching him on how to try to control me, to get me to stay in the marriage. And he was using her as a way of contacting all of the relatives in the family, because I had gone full no contact with all of them because they were all abusive. And I should have cut them loose a long time ago, but I did it under the guidance of a wonderful mental health practitioner who was very, very aware of domestic violence and the aftermath of domestic violence, and about how we can choose our family if the family that we were born into does not treat us. They're not people of love, light, truth, compassion, and human decency. They are people who are almost devoid of empathy and compassion, very, very conscience impaired, and absolutely love to convince another person that they should be under the control of them. And I had just decided, I went to my mental health professional and I said, I am being abused left and right, and I can't stand it anymore. And it's making me super depressed, and I can't anymore. And that's when they were telling me, well, you don't have to live that way. We can support you through separating from these people. You can go either low to no contact, full no contact. You can use gray rock method if you want to stay in contact with them, but they won't be able to get in anymore, and you won't be sharing with them your private information. But I decided to go full no contact with them. And it was one of the best decisions that I've ever made. But this one particular sibling who told me what my rights were, that I had no right to get divorced until I had gone to every single form of couples counseling and mental health counseling for myself. I don't know what every single form of it meant to her. She didn't clarify, but I assumed that it meant, I want your butt inside of a couples counseling office with him, and I want you to be understanding that you need to change yourself so that you can tolerate whatever's happening, because it's your job to tolerate being abused, and he has the right to do it anyways. I already knew that was her, her sisters, they're former sisters now, but I understood that was her viewpoint. I had known that for a long time. So when we have the situation where now the person who has coercively controlled us has found an ally in the coercive control. And what does that bring? It can bring, and in my case it did, a years-long, sickening, private, secret, underground smear campaign. Going from person to person to person to person, trying to get them to reach their dirty arm across several states or towns, to stick that dirty arm into the fishbowl of my life and swirl the water the way they wanted it. more coercive control. We heard this about you. We want you to do this. Or we've all banded together and we're a united front. And since you won't get back into a relationship with a person who harms you, where we want you, then you're going to feel these really nasty consequences. You're going to get silent treatment. You're going to get not included in anything with the family. You're going to be taken out of the family's group text. You're not going to be able to get access to anyone anymore. I'm like, bring it on. Thank you so much for making separation from you easy for me. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. One of the actually nicest things that you've ever done for me. So much appreciation in here for you actually cutting me off from the rest of my family because you helped me to do what I had set out to do already. So bravo, thank you. But instead I just did that quietly to myself. I didn't contact anyone. When I made the decision to go full no contact, I understood that that means none, absolutely no contact. But when I found out that my spouse immediately went into a really, really intense, close, contacting very frequently, texting, phone call relationship. And then when that person is in our state to visit, getting together, going out to dinner, and working on the project of what do we do with her, meaning me? What do we do? What are we going to do to get her to do what we want? And so a plan was hatched to actually use a lawsuit. My spouse brought a lawsuit against me based on that person's suggestion. If you want to get control of her, make it so legally she has to do what you say. So force her, give her a choice. You either come along with me and do as I say and stop this independent thought nonsense and living apart nonsense, or else I'm going to make your life miserable by doing legal abuse to you. So he took the advice of multiple different people and filed a false lawsuit and then said straight up, said it right out loud. I didn't want to divorce you. I just wanted to get you to understand that I will make life miserable for you until you get back in the relationship with me. That to me was the ultimate coercive, controlling action. I'm filing a false lawsuit to make you so scared. That's what he kept on saying. I wanted to scare you bad enough that I'm taking every worldly possession you own away from you so that you will give me what I want, which is to live in the same house with you again. So he can do what? So he can monitor every movement. He kept on saying this. In couples counseling, which I did go to document, I wanted it for the purpose of, and I was very upfront on the very first day of couples counseling, not here to fix the relationship. I'm here to document because it's going into your session notes. And so to the practitioner, if you're taking notes, when I'm telling you what has happened to me, you can record my spouse's response when I tell you what has happened, what he has done. And then that leaves me a paper trail for in case I get sued by him again. And the counselor said, I think that's very wise. I think that's a really good idea. I'm glad you're here. So we did that for 8 months. And I did speak again and again and again and again, all these different ways that I was coercively controlled by my spouse. And a very good practitioner will turn to that spouse and say, well, she just made an allegation against you. Did you do that thing that she said? And he sat there and said, well, yes, I did. And he'd say, do you recognize that that's a horrendous thing to do to a person? And he'd say, well, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And then the counselor said, do you feel remorse for doing that to Lynn? Because that is a really, really heavy difficult thing that you put on her, that you forced her to live through or forced her to experience. Do you feel remorse for that? And the response might be, well, I regret it. And a few days ago, I did a talk about the abuser's language and how they will substitute the word regret for remorse. And that was, we were seeing that again and again and again in 8 months of couples counseling, going usually twice a week for 8 months. So, I'm sorry, not twice a week. I'm sorry, usually once a week for 8 months. So what does this information give me though? It's playing out in real time right in front of me. This person who does coercive control does not think it's wrong, doesn't feel guilt or remorse or shame for it. And then when they're asked, do you feel remorse for that? They say, sure, I regret it. And the counselor let that slide a few times. And then he started to say, but I didn't ask you if you regret it. I asked you if you feel remorse for doing it. And I'm like, yes, I love this, because I didn't want to jump in and, attack for that. I was just waiting for the counselor to, he was probably checking to see how many times is he going to do this. I throw the bait out for him every time, and every single time he does not use the word remorse. He resists the word remorse and says regret. And then finally he called him out on it. He says, so you're saying you don't feel remorse for it? And my spouse actually said, yeah, sure, remorse. Let's call it remorse. Sure, whatever. That's a no. That is a no. I don't feel remorse. When you ask somebody if they feel remorse for something, they go, yep, sure, whatever. Yep, you bet. Of course. Yep, I feel remorse. That is them telling you through gaslighting, absolutely no remorse is felt, and I'm trying to make you feel stupid for asking me. So, coercive control, a person who is coercively controlling you doesn't mind running a secret. Some of you may never find out it was done. There just might not be that explosive moment where you found out that your former partner or estranged partner or your divorced spouse, you're divorced from them now, or whatever is your situation, you might never find out how horrendously they were betraying and backstabbing and triangulating you and smearing you and forming alliances with other people attempting to control you. I just happened to find out about mine. It was February 10th of 2022. I was walking across the supermarket parking lot, and I was in a phone call with my spouse, and he let it slip. He was dropping hints. He loved dropping hints. He's a hint dropper. But he dropped a hint that was one I'd heard over and over again, and all of a sudden it clicked. And I stopped in the middle of the parking lot. It was a brilliant sunny day, lots of snow on the ground, lots of packed snow that was slippery on the ground in the parking lot. And I said, oh my God, you just told me that my entire family loves me and they're concerned about me. He said, yes, they are. I said, you couldn't know that, and you couldn't say that unless you've been talking to all of my family and you have given your solemn promise to me that you will leave all other people out of our marital issues. It is not a group sport. Marriage is private, it's between two people. And what has gone on in our relationship is not the business of the people that I am full no contact with. And his response was, but I'm not. And that's what he told me. I said, have you been, after giving me your word that you would not speak about our marriage or me with any person that I am estranged from? I said, our marriage is not open for discussion anywhere. it is only for you and me, or if we're in together inside of a couples counseling office, if we do go that route. And at that time, I didn't want to. But this is when I found out that he decided there's all this untapped coercive control leverage, and they're all around me, and I get to use all of them to ask them to do things to Lynn so that I can get my own way. Because what do I want? Power and control over her. And I cannot control her if we live in separate towns, in separate houses, living separate lives with virtually no reason to contact each other, except for managing property. We own the same buildings. We each, are co-owners of houses. And I don't have any problem contacting someone about something that has to do with getting a new roof on the house, or, paying a contractor for snow plowing service for the year or something like that. But no, person does not have to divorce. They simply have to get away. And I did that. And my life was going quite nicely. And at that time, I couldn't believe how complex and how backstabbing, how controlling, how incredibly invasive a person who does coercive control can be. And if you think that they're not doing it, if they're coercively controlling you, there's a very high likelihood that they are reaching out to people who are either currently in your life, or they are not in your life, but wouldn't mind speaking to them. So there's a lot of information sharing. There's a lot of spying. There's a lot of tracking. There's a lot of reporting. There's a lot of these people are referred to in the narcissistic family system. They are referred to as flying monkeys. And some of them, they're, if you're in a relationship with someone and they're doing coercive control, and they have their flying monkeys that are feeding them information, or that they're giving jobs to have them go do things that are going to affect you, the flying monkeys, can actually employ their own flying monkeys, and to differentiate the two, I call those prime flunkies. The flying monkey will go to their own kids, their nieces and nephews, their friends, different people, and start to put them in place to help them to gather recon on you. And so it all gets very, very cloudy and fuzzy and muddy and awful. But we come to the question always at the conclusion of a discussion like this: what can we do about it? What on earth can we do about this? Well, some of them I've already spoken out loud. If it's an intimate partner, whether you're married to them or not, doesn't make any difference. If you want to go into couples counseling for the purpose of creating a paper trail that can be subpoenaed in a court case, then I highly recommend going into couples counseling. If you're going to couples counseling to try to patch things up and get the coercive controlling person to ease up and stop this and treat you with love, light, truth, compassion, and human decency, that's not on offer with a person who is a coercive controller. They can't. They're already highly narcissistic and possibly highly sociopathic, psychopathic, or having antisocial traits, which means very, very, very low conscience, very impaired ability to feel remorse for what they do. So they're not going to straighten up and fly right. They're only going to try to use the person in counseling, the counselor, to become an ally of theirs against you. They will attempt that. My spouse attempted that again and again and again and again and again, and the counselor was not biting, was not taking that bait. But he would even try using the bro code. You'd say, come on, you're a guy. You know what I'm talking about. You know how women do this. And the counselor would just sit there shaking his head, not responding at all, just slowly shaking his head. And then just letting those words just fall on the floor. And then leaving the abuser. We would think that would, having the counselor just be flat and not answer it, not say anything, not take the bait. You would think that a person would be embarrassed by that happening, but not an abuser, not a person who does coercive control. No, that person will just think, I tried, and then try it a different way. They're relentless. They'll just keep coming at you and coming at you and coming at you. And if one of them falls flat and it didn't give them what they want, on to the next tool. I'm going to try something else, but I am going to get what I want. And I'm going to control everybody in the room because I'm the center of the universe and you are all revolving around me. And it will never be any way other than that inside of my head. And so I have the right to get you on my side against my spouse because that's what everybody gives me. Her whole family has given me that. My whole family has given me that. Our kids have given me that. Everybody listens to my lies, and then I can get them to act on my lies to hurt her because I love it. I'm addicted to it, and it's not hurting her, and it's not wrong, and I have no regret. Oh wait, I have no remorse. I might feel regret if it blows up in my face, but I'll never have remorse about this because I don't do remorse. I don't even know what remorse is or how you do it. And they're just like completely cool with that. It's actually it can be really, really shocking to be in a controlled environment. I use that word sparingly, but inside a couples counseling office with the counselor who is also acting somewhat as a mediator, just saying, well, how do you feel about that? And then pivot and say, but how do you feel about that? And back and forth with giving fair communication, facilitating fair communication in this space. But when we go to couples counseling with a coercive controlling individual, we can use it to our advantage. Use it to your own advantage if you have the opportunity and you desire to go. But it should be for what works out for you. You're the abused person. Couples counseling should only be viewed, in my opinion, as a tool that helps you to get the support that you need and for you to be able to have a situation where your counselor has created office notes that can now, or session notes. They're required to make session notes for every visit they have with you. And then those things can be subpoenaed if that person ever does anything to harm you that ends up in a court of law. So the other thing is, of course, low to no contact, gray rocking, all of those things. We all know that those are very effective for working with an abuser. Putting physical distance between yourself, checking every once in a while. You can take your car to a sheriff's station anywhere in the country. You can take your car to a sheriff's station, and you can, or the New York State Police in my state, the county sheriffs or the New York State Police. I can take my car to them and say, I think that I'm being GPS tracked by a disgruntled former spouse. And I wondered if you could please check if there are any tracking devices on my vehicle. You can have someone come and check your home to see if that person, when you're out, has in any way installed cameras in your home so that they can monitor you. You can just ask around a little bit, just gently asking, like if when you're at work, you can go into your supervisor's office and quietly just ask, has my abusive spouse done anything to contact you or to call you, to come in here, see you face to face, to ask you for any information or to give you any information about me? And if your supervisor is trustworthy, then you might just be told, no, they haven't done that. And you can, how do I say that? If you already trust them, then it's trustworthy information, right? But what if they say, actually, I never mentioned it to you because I didn't want you to feel like I'm trying to get in your business. But yes, we've had several phone calls from your former partner, and they're trying very hard to get information about you at work. And they're telling us things about you that are absurd, and we'd never believe them anyways, because you're one of our best workers. And that has nothing to do with anything that you're doing here. So we can ask around a little bit, just quietly, just having our feelers out for if they're invading my life into these areas to try to coerce me back into the relationship if we've left. And if we haven't left, there's a whole lot of information you can get. I always recommend going to the hotline.org. It is hands down the biggest and best organization in the United States that is there to help you to understand what your resources are. There are people there that you can talk to. You can get, one-on-one guidance for the best way to begin to deal with this. And they will hook you up, as they did with me, with fantastic domestic violence resources. And coercive control is absolutely considered domestic violence. There is no ambiguity on that. Coercive control is domestic violence, and it is such serious domestic violence that the UK, in the UK, England and Wales have both made it illegal, and that you will be charged, and you could either be imprisoned or you could pay a fine. And the more you do it, the more charges of it against you. If you become a repeat offender and you're brought in again for it, then you're going to lose your freedom and your privileges. And as it should be, because every single one of us has the right to live in peace. The last thing that I will say about what we can do for ourselves is incredibly good self-care. You are so infinitely worthy of your own self-care. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is essential to being healthy, and you deserve to be healthy. You deserve to focus on yourself instead of on the abuser, and to meet your own needs the best way that you know how. And if you don't know how, reaching out to the hotline.org will help you to be able to they will find for you a domestic violence counseling or counselor and support group in your area. And if you don't want to go in person, they can give you online resources. And even if you have to go to a public library and ask them, if you say, can I have a private chat with you? I really need to speak to you privately about getting some help here. And they might say, well, come on over here for a minute. Come behind this door. We'll go in this office for a second. What do you need? I'm a domestic abuse survivor. I can't use my computer or my phone at home because my partner can track me on those things, or they are present, they're in the home. Is there any way that I can come here one night a week to use a computer so that I can go on sites like the hotline.org and other very well-known resources for abused individuals to be able to get help? I need it really badly, but I can't get it at home. And that librarian might actually say to you, we would be so happy to have you have one of our computers to use. You can use headphones. You can listen to whatever you want. And if you are worried about being in a space out where a person can see you, we might be able to help you so that you can go into a resource room that we have here that is used only by reservation. And we can give you a time slot where that can be yours. So there are ways to get around this. You can also go to a trusted friend, or if you're like me and you've gone full no contact with your family, then go to a friend. Okay, go to a friend. And if you don't have a friend who is that kind of friendship where they can support you, where you can come over to their place and you could go hop on their computer and get information that you need, get resources, then just please know that the hotline.org has resources for how you can get the help that you need without being spotted, for lack of a better word, without being tracked. And they even have an emergency exit button on their screen, on the screen on your device, for when you're either in a chat with them or just looking through the resources on their website. You just hit the exit button, it all just goes away real quick if that person comes in the room. And it just clears it right out. I don't know if it takes it out of your cache, but I have a feeling it might. But anyways, I hope this resource has helped you to understand coercive control a little bit better. Not one of us is on the planet to experience this. In other countries, it's a crime. Just because it's not a crime here doesn't mean that it's not a crime against humanity. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And I don't speak about politics on my channel because I don't want to offend anyone. And I don't want to shame anyone. And I don't want to be an influence in that way on anyone else's opinion. My expertise is trauma. But I can tell you, if you pay attention in the news, you will see a very, very exaggerated case of a person who is absolutely, without a doubt, coercively controlling possibly millions of people, and has been for years, and makes threats, thinly veiled threats, come along with what I do, or you're going to feel some pain. You know, saying things like, I'm going to end your news organization. I'm going to jail all of you when I have power back. I'm just going to start jailing people and taking away their First Amendment speech rights. I will say that any person who's saying that is coercively controlling millions of people because they have that far of a reach. But when you hear the language of, if you don't do this, I'm going to do this to you, it's coercive control. It's not the only way it happens, but that is most definitely coercive control language. Give me what I want, or I will cause you pain. So I'm going to leave it there. This one has run quite long today, and I really appreciate you sticking with me to the end. Thank you so much. If you're interested in becoming a client for certified trauma recovery coaching sessions, I work one-on-one with people 18 years of age and older. And you can reach me through my website, linbouthillier.com. You can email me, lin@linbouthillier.com. You can call my phone at 716-994-3052. All of this information is in the description page for every one of my videos. So that's how you can find me. And so don't worry if you didn't write it down fast enough while I was speaking it. Just go to the description page for this video. It's all right there. I can't stress enough to you how much I want you to be able to live the life you want to live, free of the constraints of your trauma. So I am especially full of gratitude that you come to my channel and you learn here, and it just means the world to me. If you like my channel, please hit the like button for this video now. That would be so great if you would do that. But like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, put comments in the comment section, and share it on whatever platform you would like to share it on. It helps my channel to grow, and it helps the trauma and abuse community. And so I can't see a bad thing about it. Thank you. I really appreciate all of you so, so, so much. Have the best day, everyone. See you next time.